Hello, everybody. This is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, here to talk to you all about the 49ers now that the OTAs, this week one, is in the books. Thought I'd come on and do a little bit of a mailbag segment with y'all. I went on Twitter earlier today and requested some questions. I took those and I have those already in the comments section, and I'll be going through those as we go. Going to be on for about 45 minutes, maybe a little bit less than that. I have a show with Rob Shu over on his channel that's set to kick off at 4 o'clock. So I'm just going to do a quick show over here today, and then I'll be over on with Rob for the Friday edition of the Hammerhead Show. So before we jump into it, we have Lucas says, "Hey Jack, how you doing? Good to have you on." And Moonman, Jack, long time brother, good to have you on, Moonman. Like the Trey Lance graphic you've got there. And then we've got Bay Gibson says, "What's up? It's hammer time." That's for sure. And then Swan Song coming in, and he says, "Happy Memorial Day weekend." And then real quick, before I go any further, when you look at my channel and you look at the banner across the top, the one that has Joe Montana and Trey Lance, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Dwight Clark, Jerry Rice, the 5 Super Bowl trophies, that graphic was actually put together by this man himself, Swan Song. I reached out to him, and he was talking about doing some things, and I asked him to put something together for me, and he put together a really sharp piece, and then went through a bunch of work to try to make it so that it would fit within the parameters that YouTube allows. So I want to give a shout out real quick to Swan Song for putting that together. I hadn't done that yet, and also hadn't tweeted it out or anything like that. So I want to make sure people know that that graphic is from Swan. Great work, and deserves props for that. Real quick, 49er Media also saying hello, checking in. Good to have you all on board. So let's just go through. I've got about 5-6 questions that were asked already. You guys can go ahead and feel free to throw those in over in the comment section. Super chats are always welcome as well. But I'm going to just start off real quick with this question that came in from @Automatic. He says, "Why did the 49ers play so poorly early last season, especially at home? Do you think they will start out better this season?" You go back and you start to look through last year. They had the quick win streak at the beginning of the season, and then things kind of went south for them. Week 3, bad start against the Green Bay team. The first time they played against a good quarterback in 2021, and Aaron Rodgers had his way with them quite a bit in that game. The 49ers fell behind, and like they did so many times throughout the season, they were able to put it together later on. They make a comeback. That's a game that they really should have won. They have the ball late in the fourth quarter. They're driving to, they're down at that time 24-21. They're on the Packers side of the field, and Jimmy Garoppolo throws the ball backwards. And the backwards throw results in 3 more points for Green Bay, which makes it 27-21 instead. And then, they drive down, they score a touchdown. But because of the mistake by Garoppolo earlier in the quarter on the series before, that allows Green Bay to only need a field goal to win the game at the end. They're able to get a couple of completions from Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams, and the rest is history. They kick the field goal, knock the 49ers off there. The following week, you get Seattle at home. 49ers go out there and they blow it up. They're doing really good in the beginning. The first possession of the game, they go right down the field and they score. Defense is rocking, just 3 and out, possession after possession for Seattle. And the 49ers offense, after that first really nice touchdown drive, just couldn't get going. Garoppolo threw a really bad pick over the middle. Then he got injured at some point later on in the first quarter, I believe. The injury actually occurred, but he played throughout the first half. Then in the second half, they go, I think, 3 and out really quick. The first possession of the game with Trey Lance. Once Seattle scores, now it's a 14-7 game. You're not thinking you're not worried at that point. But then on the ensuing kickoff, they fumble and Seattle recovers the ball right away and is lined up in prime territory, scores a touchdown. Before you know it, it's 14-7. The game feels like it's over after you dominated the whole first half. It's kind of the reversal of what happened in week 2 in Philadelphia. Indianapolis game, that's the rain soak game, and you have the 49ers jump out ahead in that one as well. Very similar to the prior home game against Seattle. They jump out on the Colts, and then if you remember, they had the lead late in the first half. They're kind of backed up a little bit. They were struggling offensively. Garoppolo finally gets a completion over the middle, and Deebo Samuel gets hit, fumbles the ball. And then with a minute left in half, Carson scores a touchdown, and Indianapolis goes up 13-12 at halftime, and they never relinquished the lead after that. The next home game that they played after that was Arizona. That was a game in which it was just a mess from start to finish. Both the safeties were out. There was both Jaquaski Tart and Jimmy Ward were out for that game, along with a number of other guys on the defense. And they just struggled early on and just got blown out of the water. You had, I think the theme of all these games, if you go back and you look at the Seahawks game, the Colts game, and even that Cardinals loss, was turnovers. You have the fumble, the pick by Garoppolo, although it didn't lead to points. You had, against Indianapolis, the catch and fumble by Deebo Samuel. Against the Cardinals, you have a catch and fumble by George Kittle on a big play over the middle, a catch and fumble by Brandon Ayuk on a big play in the red zone. You add that together with some injury issues, and I think that's why they started off so poorly at home. Do I think they're going to do better this season? I think they're going to start out better this season. The schedule favors the 49ers, and I do. I think they're going to start off. They have a chance to go 6-0 to start the year off. If they can do that, it's going to set them up throughout a tough stretch. But they have a lot of tough home games as well. When you look at their schedule for 2021, you're going to have some real tough matchups. Just you look at the quarterbacks that they have to face at home. Outside of their division, they have to face off Patrick Mahomes. They have Justin Herbert coming in. You have Tom Brady. It's just a Tua Tagovailoa. I know he's not a scary quarterback, but he has some really strong weapons out there in Miami. So they have a really tough home schedule next year. So we'll see how that works out. But I think overall, I think they have the ability to get off to a quick start. Jonathan Shane, he asked if Mack retires, do they stick with what they have or do they trade for a veteran center? At this point, I would say that they would stick with what they have. We'll see how this progresses. This is something that at this point right now, they're really tight up against the cap. They could probably add somebody for pretty cheap, but they only have about $607,000 in cap space to work with, and that's using the top 51 rule as well. So they don't have a lot of money to spend. So like a guy like, the next question was John in SoCal asking about J.C. Treader. Is he still unsigned? And he is. J.C. Treader is still unsigned, but this is a veteran who played very well for the Cleveland Browns the last couple of years, but he's been injured. He's been dealing with injury issues and had, I think it was last year, I don't even think he practiced with the team throughout the week. I think he was just a game player. I don't think he even was getting reps during the season. So I'm not sure if that's the direction the 49ers would want to go. I put out an article just a few minutes ago on 49ers.pressdemocrat.com about people sleeping on the nickel corner, Darqueze Dennard, who they was a first-round pick in 2014. The 49ers, I think there might be some folks sleeping a little bit on Jake Brendel. We don't know who Jake Brendel is, and that's why I think people might be sleeping on him a little bit. I was just doing some digging around because he was the player who was the center who was getting the first team reps on Tuesday during practice. If you go back and you look, one of the darlings of the pre-draft process, because of his 40 time and his ability to run around and catch the ball and do all kinds of fun things, was Jason Poe, who was an offensive lineman that the 49ers were able to sign as an undrafted free agent. And Poe ran a 4.8940. He made a point to make sure that everybody knew it was better than 4.9 when he was asked about it during the media availability with the 49ers media. He ran a 4.8940. What's interesting is if you go and you actually look at the numbers and you look, running in a straight line is really good. As an offensive lineman, you don't run in a straight line very much. Most of what you're having to do is laterally, side to side. You're getting, it's much more short area bursts and 40-yard sprints. Every once in a while you do that, but the amount of times you do that in a game compared to the lateral movement in the short area is much lower. And if you look at the shuttle times and all of the metrics that they use to measure lateral movement, Jake Brendel actually has quicker times in those than Jason Poe. So just something to think about there. So those were two good questions from Jonathan, Shane, and then John and SoCal. They went together there. Let me just take a look really quick and see what we've got going on down in the comment section, see if there's any other ones that are going on. If Mack retires, Bomber, real quick, he asked if Mack retires, does that open up cap space? Yeah, it would open up cap space. That's for all players it does that. It's not a great deal. I can look that up really quick while we're talking, but yeah, it would. Alex Mack retiring would allow for the 49ers to come up with some amount of cap savings, and I'll give that to you just in a second. It depends partly too on when he does it. If it's a pre-June 1 or if it's post-June 1, all those kind of things. Right now, if he was to not play for the 49ers this season, and he was to make that decision now, the 49ers would save about $4.3 million on the cap without Alex Mack coming back. So that's a positive for the 49ers. I think the one thing around Alex Mack retiring, or whether he is or isn't, it seems odd that that announcement hasn't come. It's kind of been pointed to from the 49ers, saying that they want to let Alex Mack be the one who gives the announcement, whether he's coming back or retiring. It would seem like if he was going to retire, it would have come out by now. That's kind of the general feeling that I've had since the draft, was that since it didn't come out then and it's still out there, that it seems like maybe he's staying. I was reading an article yesterday. Pro Football Talk put an article out regarding Alex Mack and the likelihood that he's going to retire. And in that, they mentioned that Mack would owe the 49ers about $2.4 million from his signing bonus if he were to retire. And so, without having any conversations with Alex Mack or anybody with the 49ers on this, maybe that's what's going on, and maybe that's what the holdup is. So we'll see the direction that plays out in. But yes, Bomber, if Mack retires, that would open up cap space. Yep. Swan asked the plus minus for turnovers last season. The 49ers, he was told that they were -4, and that is not correct. Last season, the 49ers were not -4. Excuse me, that is correct. They were -4. They had 24 turnovers and they had 20 takeaways. So 24 turnovers, 20 takeaways. They lost 10 fumbles, 14 interceptions. They recovered 11 fumbles and had 9 interceptions last season. So those are the numbers on that. So sorry to Nate about saying that you're wrong. You were 100% correct. Thank you for picking that up. And while I was talking about something else, I appreciate it. Let me go back to the preset ones that I had. There's only a couple more, and then I'll get into some of the other ones that are down below it. Niner McGregor. This is everybody knows him as Gav over in our pal from Wales. He says, what sort of season does Mike McGlinchey need to have for the 49ers to offer him a second contract next year? And this is a really good question because he's playing this season on the 5th-year option, $11.8 million guaranteed. It's almost 11.9. He's coming back from the injury. I think the answer to this question is kind of twofold. I don't know if it even has to do totally with Mike McGlinchey. I think the answer to this may have to do with how do Spencer Burford and Jalen Moore, how do they look? Because one of those two is going to be, I think both those two could push, and you can't have both of them playing guard. If Aaron Banks works out a left guard, that leaves the right guard spot open for Jalen Moore or Spencer Burford for next year. Burford was working at right guard this week during OTAs, but he was also working out at tackle during rookie minicamp. So I think this one really comes down more to the development of Jalen Moore and Spencer Burford. Do the 49ers feel like they can get out of those two the same level of play that they get out of, or close to the same level of play as they get from McGlinchey. If they feel that's the case, then they'll likely go with McGlinchey. And McGlinchey is at that point now playing for what his next contract is going to be with some other team. So as far as that goes, I think the 49ers are, for McGlinchey, he needs to go out and ball out this year because if he does, he's going to get a decent contract, whether it's from the 49ers or another organization. We've seen that with the 49ers this offseason, right? With the big money that went to Laken Tomlinson, the big money went to DJ Jones. The 49ers are only going to be able to pay so many guys. They have some big contracts coming up. And if McGlinchey plays extremely well, good enough for the 49ers to want to bring him back, it's going to be more costly. And at that point, it's really about those younger guys. Are they ready to go or not? I think that's more of the answer to this than anything else is what progress do Spencer Burford and Jalen Moore make in terms of being able to take over that right tackle spot. Swan jumping in, he says, what kind of season does Jimmy Ward need to have to be offered an extension? And this is a tough one as well, because they haven't given him an extension at this point. I would have thought that extending Ward would be something that the 49ers would have done to help with lower the cap. The possible issue here with Ward is that he's getting up there in age, and he's got a pretty high cap hit number this year, and they could probably sign him for a couple more years or 3. Not sure what the numbers are, not sure what he's looking for, but I think he needs to go out and he needs to do what he was talking about in his interview on Tuesday. He needs to go out and he needs to be an All-Pro. He needs to be a Pro Bowler. He's never been in the Pro Bowl. He needs to go do something like that. And in order to reach those levels, you need to get turnovers. Ward's a solid player on the back end of the 49ers defense and does a good job of stopping guys and keeping everything in front of him most of the time, but he doesn't get takeaways very often. He only had 2 interceptions this season during the regular season back in 2021. Both of those came in the same game back in the Monday night game against the Rams. So for Ward to get that big extension, to get the money that he's looking for, he's going to need to go out and I think get some turnovers. He's going to need to make some plays that make him a all-pro level player or a Pro Bowl level player, something like that. And then that works out for him and the 49ers as well. So that would be what I think that you need to see from Jimmy Ward this year. He's definitely a lot of fun in the press conference, that's for sure. He had some really good things to say about Talanoa Hufanga as well yesterday. And then this one was from Niner McGregor also. He asked, super excited to see Burford and Zakel. Do you think they will both have to sit a year like Aaron Banks did? And the answer to that is yes. I think you're going to see Burford and Zakel. I think they're in these are developmental years. This is going to be a developmental season for both of those players. Really like what I've seen out of Spencer Burford. You see the speed and the strength in his hands. Jumps out at you at practice on Tuesday, working with the other veterans. The few reps that I was able to see of his with the offensive line, he didn't look like he was out of place. So that's good. I didn't really get to see as much of Zakel because he was on the other side of the line, which is further away from the sidelines where I was standing. But both of these guys look like they can be positive players for the 49ers moving forward. All right, let's see what else we've got over here in the comments section. Philip asks, where does Zakel fit into the center placement? At this point, he's not in the top 3 based on the way that they put them out during OTAs. During the OTA practices on Tuesday, at least, you had he wasn't taking any of the reps at center. So right now, I'd say he's probably 4th on the list. You had who was it that was in there? You had Jake Brendel start. Keaton Sutherland was running the second team, and then you had Donovan West working with the third team. So right now, Zakel isn't working with any of the groups. He's just playing left guard. But there's a lot of repetitions and work and all those kind of things that they get. So just because he wasn't doing it during team period doesn't mean he's not getting reps in there. He's just not one of the guys that I would say right now is in the top 3 for that. Let's see what else we have. Kim in the house, he says, projections for Kinlaw, games played and stats. Have a nice Memorial Day weekend, and thanks to those who didn't make it back alive. Absolutely. appreciate the service from all those folks. I think Kinlaw is in line to potentially have a big season this year. I think he's a guy who, when you look at it, his pass rush productivity, his rookie year was on par with what we've seen from DJ Jones the last couple of years. With Kinlaw, it all depends about the knee health. He's been working out. He had the surgery. They feel like they got that solved, and and just as far as I'm concerned, and me making a projection, I'm going to base it off of what I've heard from the people around the organization. Fred Warner came out during the early part of OTAs and before the draft, talking about how Javon Kinlaw. Hold on one second. How Javon Kinlaw's knee looked as good as it's ever looked. So that's a positive. So I'm going to take that as a positive. I haven't been able to see him on the field yet. I've only seen him walking around on the sidelines at practice on Tuesday. As far as his stats go, I'm not sure, but I feel like you're going to see with him, you're going to see better pass rush than what you got out of DJ Jones. I'm not sure if the run defense is going to be quite as stout, but I think the pass rush will, and that'll definitely be something to keep an eye on. But I think this could be, if he's healthy, that's what it's the big key here. If Javon Kinlaw is healthy, he's going to have the potential he could have a breakout season. The 49ers are going to need it. I know they have a lot of depth at the defensive line, but they're expecting Kinlaw to be a big piece of that. So, if he can get 3 or 4 sacks, that would be a huge improvement, because right now he hasn't been close to that. The first sack he gets at Levi Stadium this season will be the first sack of his career at Levi Stadium. So we'll see how it all works out for Javon Kinlaw. But I put this out on Twitter, and I stand behind it. I feel like he has the potential to be an upgrade and have a good season this year if he's fully healthy. And we'll find that out as we move through the offseason, because right now he's not working. I think he's pretty much in the same situation as Mike McGlinchey. I think they're both would be in a position where if there were a game this week, I think they'd be practicing. But since there's not, and they still have a couple of months left before even training camp starts, why go out and push it too hard right now? It doesn't make any sense. But I do feel like he's, the reports. I'm not going to say the reports are lying, because I'm not here to say that anybody's lying. All I can go by is what I've heard, and we're all going to see it together, and then we'll be able to make our comments on that. So, looking forward to seeing how that works out for him. Let's see what else we've got. Hey, look at that. That's a nice one. Thank you, Bay. I agree on this one a little bit, Swan, where he says we need to get one of those lucky years where it just rains defensive turnovers for us. And I think you're right, especially with the quarterbacks that they're facing. Those. I know I predicted 13 wins for the 49ers. I could see it being as low as 10, maybe even, I could see you can make the case for it to be 8 or 9. But they've done a pretty good job in recent years of playing tough with good competition. The whole thing here is really about how well the quarterback plays for them. So does Trey Lance do what he needs to do? And if he does, I think it works out for the 49ers. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, see, look at right here. Last Second Sports, best co-host in the business. Well, besides myself, there you go. That's Jesse, and Jesse does a great job. We had a lot of fun last night on our show, and I hope he enjoyed the programming that he had afterwards, because that was pretty fantastic. I'll leave that one to Jesse, but hey, when you've got a wife and a girlfriend, you watch some shows that you need to watch, and that one was a pretty spectacular one. I myself used to be a fan of trash TV. Is always fun, right? And I don't know if there's any better trash TV out there than The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. That if you are into psychology, those are great shows to watch. Let me just put it that way. Look at Bay Gibson coming in with the big numbers. He says Kinlaw comeback player of the year with 8 sacks. I think that number's a little high, but if he can get 4, that's more than double his career so far, and that would be a big number for the 49ers and be very helpful. 4 would also be better, I believe, than what last year out of out of the man that everybody had such a good season in there last year, DJ Jones. He got the big money from Denver. DJ Jones did. DJ Jones ended up last season with a total of how many sacks? Oh, that's right, two sacks, 3 quarterback hits for a guy who's making $10 million a year with the Denver Broncos, and that is the number that you need to hit, Javon, in order to exceed what the player ahead of you from last year did. If you can get out there and get 2 sacks or more, you're going to give the 49ers more than what DJ Jones did last year. So get at, if your knee's healthy and that's what you can do, then at that point he's showing something better than what they got out of DJ Jones a year ago. And I think, in terms of the fumbles, interceptions, like Swan was talking about sack count, as he says it here, the hits and the interceptions and fumbles are going to come and go. But sticking on this theme of sacks and what Javon Kinlaw will do, the more you hit the quarterback, the more you are around the quarterback, I think the more often you get interceptions and fumbles. I think quarterbacks fumble the ball more than any other position on the field because of the way that they're hit in general. If the 49ers defensive line can get after the quarterback, that's going to generate interceptions and fumbles. So that's really something to keep an eye on there, because if they're around the quarterback, the turnovers will come, and that's partly why they had such a better number last year. They were very good very good at getting pressure on the quarterback. Let me go through. Tom with a good comment here. He says, with a healthy McGlinchey at right tackle and Aaron Banks returning to his natural position of left guard, our O-line could be better in 2022 than it was last year, especially if Alex Mack comes back. If Alex Mack comes back, then you have all the starters from last year back, with the exception of Laken Tomlinson, and I feel like Aaron Banks is in a much better spot now than he was a year ago. He's back at the left side where he played his entire career at Notre Dame, and I've said this before. I feel like Laken Tomlinson was a little overrated by 49ers fans, in part because he was just always there. His best ability was his availability. Not saying that he wasn't a good player. I'm not saying that he wasn't a positive for the 49ers, but what he brought to the team, I think, has been overstated a little bit. The injury to Jimmy Garoppolo against the Jets in 2020 was Laken Tomlinson missing his block. The interception to Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulder, and the reason why he had to get surgery and he's still a member of the 49ers, Laken Tomlinson getting beat on a block in Dallas. So just something to remember there. The thumb injury also played a part in that, and that was George Kittle getting beat against the Tennessee Titans off the edge. So, it comes and goes, but when you look at the biggest injuries the 49ers have suffered at the quarterback spot, at least in the last 2 years, it wasn't from the backup guys. Yeah, and Swan mentioned it here. The online commented on it much in his interview, and that it goes with Banks looking more fit in OTAs, and he looked good. I thought he looked good last year. I thought he looked like he had lost some weight last year when he joined the team. Maybe it has something to do with the way the stripes on the 49ers pants, but we'll see. I got to check this one out. Obi-Wan is pretty good so far, 2 episodes in. Good. I'll have to check that one out. My kids are big Star Wars fans. I'm a big Star Wars guy myself, and looking forward to checking that out, and also getting out to the movie theater at some point here and seeing Top Gun Maverick. I think that one's going to be a fun one as well. Bay Gibson says Kinlaw never really played with Bosa and Eric Armstead while playing inside with Jackson on the other end. Kinlaw is going to eat this year. That's a good point. In 2020, his rookie season, they only got to play together a little bit in the first week, and then after that, Bosa was out early in the Jets game, and then you have. This last season, Bosa was, he was in and out of the lineup, still dealing with the knee injury, and that he had, going back to pre-draft and the Dallas game. from last year. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on there. Good point, Big Gibson, about Kinlaw not really playing with Bosa before. And Bosa's kind of like people talk about how the 49ers' success with Jimmy Garoppolo on the field, right? And the wins and losses, and that's accurate. They did it in 2017. They did it in 2018 with him there. But I think when you look at Nick Bosa as well, it's hard to look at the way the 49ers defense is played and not take into account the effect that Nick Bosa has. 2019, Nick Bosa was out there and they were sacking quarterbacks left and right. They had really good turnover numbers. It was a really strong season for him there in 2019. Then in 2020, Bosa gets hurt. He misses most of that season due to injury in 2020, and the 49ers don't do well. They finish 6-10. They only get they get 20 turnovers on the season, only 8 fumbles though. They had the 12 interceptions, same numbers this year, I guess, but this year they did it in more games. So it's just an interesting one. I think that with Bosa, though, it just helps out everybody around him. And I think between Bosa and Eric Armstead lining up next to him, that could help Javon Kinlaw as well. And Swan says that means Eric might eat more this season if Kinlaw can demand a constant double team. I don't think the double team is going to come to Kinlaw. I think the double team is going to be the way they line up. I would think that you're going to have Nick Bosa with Javon Kinlaw next to him, and Kinlaw is going to line up between Bosa and Armstead. And I think what you're going to get there is you're going to get Kinlaw maybe getting a bunch of double teams. And if the double teams do go to the Kinlaw side, then you're right. Armstead definitely needs to eat. If those double teams go to Kinlaw's or to Armstead's side, then it's going to be on Kinlaw to get past them. So it's going to be really tough, I think, for these guys to the opponent to get after the full 49ers offensive line there. All right. Let me just look through here really quick. Andrew asked who's going to be the next James Bond, and Lee comes in with I think it's Idris Elba. I think that's how you say his name. That would be fantastic. That'd be a lot of fun to see that one. The Bond series, the last one was a lot of fun. Those are good shows. I like those. Also a big fan of the Bourne movies as well. Jason Bourne was a lot of fun as well. Let's see, where are we really quick? Got about 3 more minutes, so I got time for one more. And we'll take this. This is just because this is a question that Swan came in with. He said, can you see Drake Jackson making a big impact as a pass rusher this season? Yeah, I think you could see him making I don't know about how, I don't know, it depends on what you're saying. You'd have to define what you think a big impact is, right? You'd have to define big in this case. What's the big impact? But I think that Jackson could, he's going to be helpful. He's going to be able to get off the edge. If you've got Nick Bosa on one side with double teams and you have, there's only 6 guys, 5, 6, maybe 7 guys. If opponents are having to keep 7 guys in to block, that makes it really tough. Okay, you came in and you said 7 sacks. I don't think he's going to get to 7 sacks. I think you're looking at more like 5 or 6. If he gets to 7, then yes, it's a big contribution. I don't see him getting enough reps with the starting unit. We'll see. I'm going to say this real quick before I got off. 7 sacks, I think, might be a high number for Drake Jackson this year. We'll find out. But I do think that number is a little high. I don't think he's going to be the starter. He's going to be a rotational guy, and I don't think he's going to get enough sacks to get him to that number. I know it worked out for Aldon Smith as a rookie and second-year player, but Smith was also a first-round player and a generational talent. If he didn't have the off-field issues, I don't. 7 sacks, I think, might be a little high for him. I'm going to say this though, really quick. The guy to keep an eye on, Kemoko Turay. They picked him up from Indianapolis. He was a late signing in the free agent period. Turay is a big guy, not big in terms of wide, but he's taller. He has longer arms. And I'm looking forward to seeing him when we get into training camp and he's working those one-on-ones with the offensive line. I think that's going to be a real good battle is Kinlaw Toure against that offensive line for the 49ers during OTA practice on Tuesday. They only did a few pass plays as a full team unit. Toure just blew right around Jalen Moore and would have just blown up Nate Sudfeld if it was a game and he could hit a quarterback. He just blew around him. It was hand to the chest and around the outside he went. So Toure's going to be somebody to keep an eye on, I think, for the 49ers. Hopes for Banks. My hope for Banks and what the 49ers are hoping to get out of Aaron Banks is they're hoping to get the guy that they drafted out of Notre Dame. If you watch this film in Notre Dame, he was just a wall when it came to pass protection. He nobody could get by him. It was rep after rep of guys just running in and trying, not able to move him, and he was able to anchor and move and keep guys away from the quarterback. He was pretty good in the run game as well. So if the 49ers can get the guy that they drafted out of Notre Dame, if that's where he is, the 49ers are going to be in good hands with Aaron Banks at left guard. So we'll see how that works out for them. It's going to be a lot of fun. We only had the one OTA day available to the media this week. I believe there'll be one next week. Haven't seen anything yet from the 49ers, but also haven't checked my email here in a little while. So keep an eye on it. Keep an eye here on the channel. I'm going to be back next week. We have a long 3-day weekend coming up. Not sure if I'll be streaming on Monday, but if I am, I'll make sure that I put a notification out on the community site so that you have that. Just want to say real quick, shout out everybody who joined up in the comment section. Thank you to those who followed up the tweet with some questions, and then also the question that got us kicked off today, and then the questions that you all have had in the comment section. So thank you all very much. As my good friend Raphael 5629ers always likes to say, like and subscribe, everybody. So before you leave, if you like what you see here and you're not already subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button, click that little bell notification so that you don't miss any of what goes on. That little bell notification is nice because it lets you know when we're about to go live, and it also lets you know all of the content that's been put out. And then that like button and commenting really helps with the algorithms that YouTube puts into place. So just want to say thanks to everybody for doing that. If you can, before you leave, I'll be back next week with more 49ers talk here on the Jack Hammer Show. Thank you all so much. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.